Go live. There we go. Alrighty. All right. So we're going to start out with letter pairs that look similar. We learned a lot of these, or we learned all of these last week, and we're just going to figure out um, how can we tell the difference between these letters. So Curtis, from right to left, what are the two letters that you see on top?
Okay, that's a bet and a vet.
Nice, a bet and a vet. How do you tell the difference between a bet and a vet?
Well, the bet has the dot, and the vet is the one that doesn't have the dot out. What helps me remember it is the dot has been vacuumed out.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I love that. With the bet, I kind of think of, I've heard it a couple ways. So bet, I hear bet has a belly button, and then also kind of placing a bet in the middle of the table. But I like that the vet has been vacuumed. I've never heard that one before. All right. Um, how about Eddie? What about that second line from right to left? Do you know the difference between those two letters?
It's hey and red.
Oh, that sound was really great.
Thank you.
Yasher koach. I love it. You
Thank
were
you.
you did the ha 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 ha
We've been
exercise.
doing that a lot. Yeah.
Amazing. Great. So how can you tell the difference between the hay and the chet?
Hey just looks it's just missing the little bracket, or it's not connected basically. That's how I tell them apart.
Nice. Great. Hay has a hole and chet doesn't. All right.
Hay
Uh,
can breathe.
hay can breathe.
Yes, it has a hole so it can breathe.
I love that, and chet is kind of congested. I love that. All right. There's the other Kayla's here, so I'm gonna have to use last names. Um, so Kayla and Kayla, your last name is Wells, the Kayla with Eddie. So Kayla Wells, what are from right to left? What are the two letters at the bottom?
You got it? Bob with a V?
It's Bob?
I think so.
Yeah, it's Vav, and
I did not remember that one.
that is okay. So this one is Zion. Um, so Vav on the right and Zion on the left. And even though you don't remember those right now, what do you see as the difference between those two letters? Between how they look? Like how can you tell the difference?
I think Zayn has a line all the way across, and Vav is just to the left.
Nice, great. So Zion has that line that goes to the right and the left of the vertical line, and Vav, it just goes to the left. So when you're drawing these out, Vav is going to look like that. And then often Zion you would do it in a diagonal line. Sometimes people even do a little like squiggly line there to show that it's a Zion. Fantastic. So there are a lot of letters in the Hebrew alphabet that look the same but sound different, but we also have letter pairs that sound the same. We'll learn a few more of those today, but but these two will sound the same. Both of them on the previous page.
Is the first one the vet?
Exactly. And what's the one on the left?
Nope. The Zion, right?
It is not a Zion.
No, hang on.
It sounds the same as a vet, but it's not a vet.
You said it sounded the same as the what?
It sounds the same as the vet, but it's not a vet. So it also
Oh,
has the
the
sound.
het or the tet.
Nope. So it is a vav,
Oh, Bob.
um, and notice that with Hebrew letters, like we said last time, um, the letter name always lets us know what the first sound or what the sound of the letter is going to be. So the vet and the vav, both of those letter names start with a v sound. So we know that both vet and vav make a v sound. Right. Questions, comments, concerns about our letter pairs that sound or look the same? Fantastic. All right. For those who are going to be, who are going through the conversion process and are going to be going into the mikvah, this is the blessing that we are going to be saying as we go into the mikvah. And we're not going to say the whole thing today. Some of the people on the screen have already said this blessing at one point in time, whether it was a couple years ago or many years ago. So we're all kind of in different periods of time with this. I'm going to ask everybody on the screen to pick one letter to identify somewhere in this blessing. And what would be the best thing to do is to use your annotate to circle the letter you're talking about. If you know how to use annotate, great. When I call on you, I'd love for you to use that. If you don't know how to use annotate, we'll figure out which letter you're talking about. So let me start out. I'm going to start out with Curtis again because you're at the top of my screen. But Curtis, can you let me know one of the letters that you see on this screen?
Okay. Does it? Okay. Lamed.
Lamed. All right.
Mhm.
Can you circle where you see a lamed?
I cannot, but I can draw one.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see. Well, let me circle that.
And lamed we are going to learn today, so this is good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's great. So you see a lamed. There's a lamed there. There's a lamed
Yeah.
here. Lots of lameds around. Here's a lamed here. Wonderful. All right. Great job. How about do you prefer Dr. Aber or Pam?
Either one is fine.
All right. Do you know Hebrew letters well enough to tell us a letter that you see?
Yes, ma'am. I see a mem sofit
A
at the
mem
end of the
sofit.
first line.
Aha. And that is going to be next week. But I'm glad that you're giving us a preview now. So a sofit letter is, remember last week we talked about letters that only appear at the end of words. So a mem sofit is a mem, but it appears at the very end of a word. So you're never going to see this mem show up at the end of a word. It's always going to look like the this boxy mem here, a mem sofit. But we'll get there next week. All right. So Eddie, is there a letter that you see?
I saw Yod.
Nice. You saw a yud. Do you know? Can you explain a little bit where you saw it?
It was the third word.
Nice.
Typically, that's used to replace God's name, right? When in writing.
Right. When you've got two of them, there are two yuds. Fantastic. All right. Kayla, is there a letter that you know that you see?
The hay in the fourth word.
Okay, in the fourth word. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice.
Yeah.
Great. All righty. How about Mark? Do you see a letter you know?
There's an aleph in the fourth word.
Fourth word. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. All right. And Dr. Strain, what's a letter you see?
Well, then what's missing is that.
Vet?
That.
All right. Where do you see a vet?
The first word is
Is that a vet or a bet?
with a B.
Okay, good job. Nice.
And then you've got the second line. There's the third one is a that.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. All right. And Kayla Salsa, am I pronouncing your last name right? I don't know if she's there. But Curtis, am I pronouncing Kayla's last name correctly?
I'll say Souza,
Souza.
but yeah, I think you're saying it
Great.
well enough.
Souza. I don't know if she's there, but when she is, she can unmute. All right, fantastic. We're gonna do one more of these kinds of exercises before we go on. This is the blessing before the Torah reading, and I'm gonna zoom in. Some of you have said this blessing 10,000 times before, and some of you have not said this blessing before. So, but we're all going to try to identify those letters. We're going to do the same thing we just did. So, Curtis, what's a letter that you see in here?
Just anywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Is that Resh, the second letter in the top?
Second letter is a Resh. Nice. We're going to learn a Resh today, too. Dr. Aber?
Yes, ma'am. I see a lamed.
See a lamed. Where do you see a lamed?
1, 2, 3, fourth line, the fourth word. I can't find notate on my screen. I'm not sure what that is.
So it's going to be, when you go to the, there's a little green bar that says something about screen sharing. And when you go to that little green bar, there's an image of a pencil that says annotate. You click that, and then you can click draw. So
okay, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Sharing, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. Mark did a little star. Am I explaining that right for if you're on the other end of the screen sharing, that you hover over the green bar and then you click annotate?
If you're on Windows, if you look at the top.
Oh, I see annotate under view option.
Yeah, view options at the top of your screen.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Great.
Now
and so
I got
Dr. Aber figured it out. And if you want, anybody else can go can find it on your computer and draw a little. And next time you come to the synagogue, if you still haven't figured it out, next time you come to the synagogue, I can show you on Zoom. All right. Eddie, do you see a letter?
Yep, I see vet with a V. It's going to be the last word, middle letter in the first sentence.
Oh, in the first sentence. Vet, nice. All right, how about Kayla?
I think I see an Aleph on the second word.
Nice. You definitely do. All right. And Dr. Strain?
I see I guess it's called a hech. A hech, that one here.
I'm not sure. Oh,
I'm sorry, that's hay.
Fantastic. That's a hay.
Sorry. Yeah, that's
Great.
the hay. And there's another hay right here.
Yep. Lots of hays around.
Yeah.
And then Kayla Sousa. Do you see one?
Yeah. Hoof.
Where do you see that?
Later.
Sorry, where do you see that?
Yes. I see hoof.
Hoof. So there
Hoof.
is a letter called a chaf, and there's a letter called a kuf. So I'm not sure
Later.
which.
Half.
Chaf. Great. Where do you see a chaf?
Not. I see half. Not cough. Later.
Okay. So I see, is this the letter that you're
No,
talking?
no. 1, 2, 3.
Let's see.
Oh,
there we go. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Cuff. There we go.
Yes.
Fantastic. Great. I didn't even see that one, so thank you. So that is a
You're welcome.
chaf. Great. So
Yes.
thank you for noticing that because I did not see the chaf there. All right.
You're welcome.
All right, so we are going to go on and learn some new letters. One thing, actually before that, one thing that I did not, that I didn't mention was that, our syllabus has some links for the Aleph Bet song. There are a couple of different versions of the Aleph Bet song. The Debbie Friedman version is the one that's most often used in Jewish education today, but you might like the other ones better. I find it so helpful to just sing the Aleph Bet song over and over and over and over again. I find it really helpful because it gets all the names of the letters stuck in your head. And so it doesn't, you're drawing, when you know the Aleph Bet song, you're drawing from words that you've already heard and that you're already used to saying. So it's a little bit silly, but I think it's definitely worthwhile, especially if you've got a little kid or kids or babies at home. It's a fun, playful song anyway. So I highly recommend just listening to the Aleph Bet song and singing along over and over and over again, whether with your kids or in the privacy of your own home. All right, new letters. So our first letter, so this is, again, we've got lots of people today who were previewing what we were going to learn today. So this letter is kaf with a k sound. The way that I've always learned this is you've got something stuck in your throat, so you have to cough. Or again, I don't know why they taught us this as little kids, but you know, you got to cough up your money in the middle of the pot. I don't know why they taught us that with bet and cough, but that's how I learned it. So so this one's a kaf. Now here's where it gets tricky. This one is a chaf. Again, there's that uvular fricative. So it's the sound. And it looks like a kaf except without the dot. So so let's do what we were doing last week, and we're going to draw the letter. So the kaf is going to be, there are two ways you can draw a kaf. I can't see myself here. Here we go. Two ways that we can draw kaf. One is we can do a backward C, like that. And one is we can do it more boxy. So a lot of the letters have a more boxy version and a more squiggly version. So whichever one you prefer, and the lines should be parallel to one another. So so top and bottom are going to be similar length, and they should be about the same length as you would do for a bet. Keep in mind that the kaf, the corners of the kaf don't stick out. Okay. So that's our kaf. And then our chaf is going to be the same thing as a kaf. Our chaf is going to be this backward C, or it's going to be that more boxy one. Either way, whatever works best for you. So what I would love for you to do is to write 5 times the letter kaf and then 5 times the letter chaf. Our next letter is going to be another one that we learned about a little bit earlier, that we heard about a little bit earlier. Kind of looks like a thunderbolt. or lightning, or like a lightning bolt, shall we say, and it's a lamed, which makes an ol sound. Here's how I learned how to make a lamed. Little line on top, straight line from there, and then a straight line here, or if you want to be fancy, you can do kind of a backward squiggle there. So either of those work for a cough, or work for a lamed. Definitely not a cough. So I'll draw on here. Again, try drawing 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3. Oops. 3. So it's like a lamed lightning bolt. If you're a music person, kind of looks like a quarter rest, but it's not. All right. Okay. Next one is a mem, another one that we talked about a little bit earlier. So our mem kind of looks like a mountain, I suppose, or at least a little hill. Step 1 is an upside down U. Step 2 is a little line at the bottom. Step 3 is a little line at the top. I have also seen people do this with straighter lines. I've also seen people do it with a sort of upside down V. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Whichever one you prefer, and I'll draw it on the screen as well. So we'll do 5 of those. 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, I suppose, for this. And 1, 2, 3, 4 for that one. So that's our mountainous mem. All right. Our next one is a nun. Again, 2 ways to draw a nun. And nun you might have seen on a dreidel before. Nun makes an n sound. And if you notice also, because the Phoenicians were in the same part of the world, you know, we're in the same part of the world creating the letters for Hebrew and for whatever the other languages were around then. Maybe Greek. I'm terrible with history. But you'll notice L, M, N come in order. So a lot of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet will come in order as well, right? It's the aleph bet, like the alphabet. So again, another good reason to learn the aleph bet sound, because then you get that ordering as well. So nun, 2 different ways to draw a nun. One is kind of a very narrow, kind of looks like a very narrow cough, right? So it's going to look like a cough, but a lot narrower, or like a vav with a little line at the bottom, right? So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to make it very narrow on the top, and then, oh, not that long, but make it a little bit longer on the bottom, so that you know that it's not a cough, right? That it's tiny on the top and then long on the bottom. So that's a nun. And I'll draw this another way as well. 1, 2, 3. Oops, let's do that with straight lines. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. Now what I want you to do when you're drawing your nuns is to look at your page and make sure that your nun is narrower, right? Nun, narrow. That your nun, if you're drawing the top and the bottom the same length, that it's narrower than your kaf, so that you know that, or than your chaf, so that you know the difference between the two. All right. Our next letter is samech. Now, this is going to be our first of 2 letters that make that s sound. So our samech is going to be a U shape, and then that top line is straight with going over the edge a little bit. So that's a samech. Makes a sound. Can anybody think of a good mnemonic for a samech? Good way to remember a samech?
It looks a little like a snake.
Kind of like a snake because it curls up a little bit. Snaky samech.
It's got a big end and a little end if you draw it from the top first.
Mm-hmm. So last week we learned a little bit, just as a review, that if you're looking at, when you're drawing, the easiest way to draw, if you imagine that you're drawing in a square, is that you go left to right, and then up to down, and then lots of other little signs, or lots of other little bits also. So up to down would be starting here, and then, or sorry, right to left. Yeep. I meant right to left, up to down. So we would start our samech. At this top left corner here, because you can't really do all of samech. You can't really do samech my English today, goodness, my Hebrew's great, my English not so much. You always want to draw it using the fewest pen strokes possible, and you want to try to follow those two rules of writing from right to left and up to down. And so the only way using these rules, or the best way using these rules to draw a samech, would be to prioritize that up to down, so that you can do all of that in one step. Long-winded way of explaining. Alrighty. Let me just look and see. Okay, good. I was trying to figure out when are we reviewing? But it's going to be the next slide. All right, so the ayin is silent. What was the other letter? And anybody can let me know. What was the other letter that we had that was silent?
Aleph.
Aleph.
Nice. So ayin and aleph sound the same. Historically, not every dialect pronounced ayin the same as aleph. So ayin used to be more like guttural sounds, like ayin. So some scholars will still do that, but most of the time we'll just pronounce ayin and aleph the same way. So again, there's a boxy way to do it, and there's a less boxy way to do it. So boxy way to do it is going to be diagonal line here, line across, and line up. Okay, so that's an ayin. Less boxy way is like that, right? A swoop, and then that line up. So those are two different ways to draw an ayin. Draw 5 of whichever one you like better. All right. Let me think. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2. Oops. 1, 2. Kind of looks like a Y, but keep in mind that this ayin is more open. This ayin is pretty open and it's big. We've got another letter coming that looks pretty similar, but has a totally different sound. So be prepared. All right, questions about any of these letters before we review? All right. So Emma
I have a
has,
question.
yes, Dr. Strain.
Okay, and that's dealing with what I was going to ask you. Is that a cough or a coof? I thought that was,
Ah, that is a chaf.
that's a cough, right? Cough.
So it makes a
Yeah, with the H, cough. It's
so not a cough. So not a. Remember that the one without the dot doesn't
it's cough
make
up the dot, yeah. It's
right?
more lingual.
The one with the dot makes the k sound, but without the dot, it makes a that sound that we're practicing. That we're practicing in the shower every day. Okay. Emma, I don't know if you came in at this point, but do you know what letter this is?
Not without using my cheat sheet.
Use your cheat. Please use your cheat sheet.
Mem.
Fantastic. What sound does a mem make?
M. But
Great. Dr. Strain, since you just asked about this, can you draw a cuff and show it to us? That is a beautiful cuff. Much straighter lines than I could possibly do. Fantastic. All right. Curtis, could you draw a lamed?
Sure. Let me go to another page. They're very ugly, but
I cannot see anything on your screen, unfortunately.
really,
Because you got that background.
can't see it.
No.
It's the one that looks like the lightning bolt, though.
It does look
makes
like
the
a
L
lightning.
sound. Yeah.
That's true. All right, I'll give that one to you. Dr. Aber, what letter is this?
Ein.
Nice.
It
Beautiful.
is silent.
It is silent. Thank you. And then Curtis, thank you for reminding me. Curtis, what sound does a lamed make?
L sound.
Great. All righty. How about Kayla Sousa? What letter is this?
This is vet.
It is not a vet.
I think so.
So a vet is
No.
no. So a vet looks like this. Okay, so this one's different. This one's narrower. Do you want to try to guess again?
Hold on. This is Yud.
It is not a yud, unfortunately. A yud looks like this. It's okay. It takes some time, especially if this. I don't know if you've learned this before, but the first or second time that you're learning, sometimes even the third or fourth time, it gets confusing. But we'll get there. Eddie, what letter is this? Oh, he's frozen.
It's a nun.
Fantastic. It is a narrow nun. What about Kayla Wells? What letter is this?
Samak.
Nice. So it's pronounced
Okay.
Samech.
Good try then.
Samech. What sound does a samech make, Kayla?
Silent.
It's not silent.
Oh.
It's
But
It's the sound.
right, exactly. So the two letters in the Hebrew alphabet that start with a that start with a vowel, like aleph and ayin, those are the only two that are silent. Every other letter in the Hebrew alphabet makes the sound of the first letter of its name. So samech would be a s, bet would be a b, and so on. All right. Questions before we go on? Questions, comments, concerns? Fantastic. I'm just curious, Curtis, your shirt says I'm something. What are you?
Jewish.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I was very curious.
There's a bottom half to it that,
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds good. All right, our next letter is pay. Again, two different ways to draw this. There's a six-step way of drawing a pay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of like a Pez dispenser, I suppose, is what I've heard. I don't know how it looks like a Pez dispenser, but you can look at it like a Pez dispenser. Again, growing up, I learned that you pay it forward, right? You put a penny in the middle. And then another way to do it is just to make a curly Q or curly sort of thing. That's a pay. Another way to do it is some sort of combination of the two. Right. So you can pick your pay poison and draw 5 of those, whichever one you like the best. And what I would do in person is I would have a bunch of flashcards on the table so that you can bring those flashcards home. Again, we have those online flashcards, and Dr. Aber, I'll send you those as well. We have the online flashcards that I sent out, but I always think, at least for me as a kinesthetic learner, it always helps me learn more to write out my own flashcards, and then I can put little notes on the flashcards that help me to remember. Lots of different ways to draw it. That is a pay. Right. And if that didn't have enough lines or enough versions of how you might see it or draw it, have no fear, it's more complicated. So this is a fey. This one does not have the dot in the middle. But we would draw it the same way as a pay, just without the dot. So try to draw 5 of those, even though you just drew 5 of a letter that looks very similar. Hopefully we get a mark back.
Oh, he's having a lot of IT issues. Forced update.
Not fun. Fey is for forced update. That's how I'll remember it now, because his forced update happened while we were learning Fey. All right, this is the other one that looks, this looks similar to another letter that we've learned already, but we'll go over what makes it different. So this is a tsadi. It makes a ts sound. So this sometimes can be difficult for Hebrew students. Sometimes you catch on really quickly, sometimes not so much. So this makes that ts sound kind of like pizza or cats. Anybody have another English word you can think of that has the ts sound in it?
It's more that's the noise you make to cats when you want to say puss puss. puss puss. You know, well, that's what my mother always does.
Somebody say that to a cat, but if that's how you say it to a cat, if that's what you say to a cat, great way to remember. You also said the word it's. So it's has that t's sound. Sometimes it's written out as TZ in transliteration. So you'll see that sometimes with tzedek, which means righteousness. So in the Hebrew, you would see tzedek as tzedek. Oops. That's a word that has a tzadi in it. Or tzedakah, so righteousness or charity. I haven't even shown how to write it yet, so let's do that. So for a tzadi, you draw an acute angle. That's a tzadi. Oops. The little line on top. Oops. That was an ayin. I was about to draw an ayin. So the ayin has the obtuse angle. The tzadi has an acute angle. If math terminology is not helpful for you, don't worry about it. So this is a tzadi. All right. Some people draw it more narrow, some people draw it wider. That's our tzadi. All right. All right, this is a kuf. So a kuf makes a k sound, like a kaf, but it's a different letter. So a kuf, you would do 1, 2, 3. Let me make sure that you can actually see me. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I've also seen people do a shortcut and just go like that. The key here is that with the kuf is that it's going to go, if we were to draw on lined paper, the kuf is going to go under the line. And that's similar also, I know that we're not on this letter, but I didn't say this before, that's going to be similar with the lamed, so the lamed's going to go above the line. Kuf will go below. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2. And the line doesn't have to be that long. I'm just being dramatic. Just needs to go under where other letters are on the page. Okay. That is a kuf. Resh. Someone mentioned a resh before. I think it might have been Dr. Strain. Someone mentioned a resh. A resh looks like another letter. It's another one of those letters that looks like another letter, but it's not. A resh is rounded. This makes the sound, and it's rounded. Oops.
Kind of like a backwards R. Kind of like a backwards R.
Oh, I guess. Well, the thing that I think might be difficult about calling it a backwards R is that at least when I learned how to draw a backwards R, I had this little corner piece to it. And I don't want that to trip us up because there was another letter that had a corner piece that is the difference between a resh and not a resh. What was the letter with the corner piece?
Dalet.
Daled, right. We don't want to think of our resh as a daled. But it sort of looks like a backwards R if we forget the corner piece. If you learned to do your lowercase r's without a corner piece, that might be a great trick for you. All right, that's our resh, our rounded resh. All right, here's the shin. What's a prayer that starts with the sh sound?
Shema.
Shema.
Great. So you might have seen a shin on mezuzot. You might have seen a shin in your prayer book a lot because the Shema is usually written really big. So the aleph and the shin are kind of, I think, two of the letters that really stand out to a whole lot of us, even if we don't know a lot of Hebrew letters. Different ways to draw a shin. Again, boxy and not so boxy. I never actually learned to draw the boxy way, but I can attempt it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then make sure your dot is on the right side. I'll give you a tip to help you remember it's on the right side when we learn the other one that looks similar. So this is a shin, and then this is the way that I learned it, like that. Those are two ways to learn to draw a shin. Draw it on the computer screen too. Shin. Or and you'll often see that little piece, that middle little piece there slanting a little bit to the right, kind of like it does here. I promise we're almost through the alphabet, the aleph-bet, but here's where it gets tricky. Here's another weird dot letter. Same thing. So however you drew your shin, you can draw it the same way. The only difference is that the dot is on the left side. So I'm a pianist. I always learned that mano sinistra is the left hand because in the olden days, this is a long-winded explanation, but in the old days, we used to think that left-handed people were sinners, or it was a sin to use your left hand. And in some cultures, it's still seen that way. So that's why our dot is on the left. That's not why our dot is on the left, but that's how I remember it's on the left. Right? So the left is a sin. And it just makes
where the word sinister comes from.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Sin is the dot is on the left side. And then our last letter for today, at least, and our last sound is going to be a taf. Taf is 1, 2, 3. Oops. Yeah. Get that right. 4. You may also see it drawn without the little corner piece here. The little corner piece doesn't really matter. It's really that tail. The taf has a tail. So that's really what you need to remember. Right, this is not a chet, this is a taf, because we know that it has a tail. Taf has a tail. Or a toe. Toe or a tail. Easier way to remember it. And I'm sure you'll probably also see it, more rounded. Doesn't really matter. Actually, that looks weird. If you want to make it rounded, you can, but I think it's just a font thing. Great. Questions about any of the letters that we've learned so far? Y'all are much more quiet over Zoom than in person. All right. Actually, before we do all of that, before we do our review, I just want us to compare some of the letters that look similar, letter pairs that look similar, letter pairs that sound similar before we go back and ask and do a quiz. Even though this is kind of a quiz also. So I would like to ask, I'm going to start with Curtis again. So Curtis, excuse me, from right to left, can you tell me what these two letters are at the top of the screen?
Sure. From right to left, it's a cough and a chaf.
Nice. A cough and a chaf. How can you tell the difference between the two?
The cough has a dot in it, and the chaf doesn't.
Yeah. See, you're great at that sound too. I'm so happy. Fantastic. No pressure on those of you who haven't totally gotten it yet. We've got lots of time. All right, Dr. Aber, from right to left, what are the two letters that you see on the second line?
Ayin and Tsadi.
Great. How do you tell the difference between the ayin and the tsadi?
The Tsadi, the ayin looks more like a Y, and the Tsadi looks more like a truncated X to me.
Oh, interesting. Kind of like a truncated X. Like an X with a line in the wrong way.
Right.
Ayin looks like a Y, which is helpful because the sound ayin has the y sound in it, right?
Right.
Word ayin. Great. I'm curious, does anybody else have a way that they remember the difference between an ayin and a tsadi?
The ayin looks like a Y, and the tsadi looks like a cheerleader with some pom-poms.
Okay, so we still got the Y and the ayin, but the cheerleader with pom-poms.
Yeah.
And the pom-poms kind of make a sound.
Yeah.
Great. I'll keep using that one. I like the obtuse and the acute angle, but you have to like really look for it. All right. How about Eddie? What letters do you see on that third line from right to left?
Pei and Fei.
Nice. How do you tell the difference between a pei and a fei?
Pei has a point in the middle.
Ooh, beautiful. A point. All right. Emma, from right to left, this next line.
Shin and sin.
All right, shin and sin. How do you tell the difference between the two?
The location of the dot.
Great.
I guess you just have to. I have natural left and right sense, so it's easy for me.
Wonderful. I love when people have natural left and right sense. Makes life easier. All right. I am not one of those people, but I'm glad you are. So Kayla Sousa, what are the letters that you see from right to left on the bottom?
Weish.
Hmm?
And Dalet.
Great.
Right?
So
Dalet.
Sorry, say that again?
And Dalet.
Great. So Resh is actually on the left and Dalid is on the right. This font makes it really annoying because this font makes it kind of annoying because you don't really see that corner that's usually in the Dalid. So the Dalid, you can tell this is a Dalid from here, that it has that corner point. And you can tell it's a Resh because it's rounded. Let me use another font to kind of...
Okay.
So a Dalid, see in this font, it's got more of that corner. That's the Dalid. And then the Resh doesn't. So it's rounded versus cornered. Great job. And we'll look at these letter pairs as well. All right. Let's see. Who's next? Dr. Strain, can you tell me the two letters from right to left that you see on the top here?
We have a cough and a ka.
A cough and a, what was that other one called?
A cough and a koof. I'm sorry.
Oof, there we go.
Oof.
Right? Both k sounds. Nice. How about Curtis? What do you see on the second line?
A chaf and a chet.
Nice. A chaf and a chet. I usually like to draw my chet, or I usually like to transliterate my chet using underlined an underlined H, but unfortunately, I can't do that on Zoom. Apparently, I can't underline something, so I hate it when we write the chet using a CH, because it looks like chaff, but unfortunately, I can't. Oh, you know what I can do though is I can do chaf, and then I can just draw a little underline there. Here, chaf. And in transliteration, that's often how we tell the difference between a chaf and a chaf. Or sorry, a chaf and a chet. Oh my goodness. This is the problem with teaching at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a het.
Chet. All right. Fantastic. Chaf and chet. Great. All right. How about?
No, this is.
All right. Eddie, what are these two letters that you see?
Samech and sin, or sin.
Yes.
Beautiful. Samech
Sin.
and
Sin.
Samech and sin. Nice. All right. And Kayla, what are the two letters that you see underneath there?
Ayin and Aleph.
Nice. Ayin and Aleph. Both of these are silent, and we'll see why that matters in a couple weeks when we learn vowels. How about Dr. Strain again? Somehow you switched positions on my computer, but that's okay. What are these two?
I'm not getting it. Let's see.
Even if you remember one of them, that's okay.
If they were blocked, that would be okay, but I'm not making them out that well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one I think is Tet,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is Tev
Yeah, Tet and Tuf.
and Tov. Yeah,
Tet and Tuf.
and Tov.
Some people will call it Tav. Great job. Nice. Right, these are all the ones that sound and look the same. Let's go to, I'm just looking over the ones that we haven't gone over. So we have reviewed all of these today. Before we go for today, are there any questions? These are all of our basic consonants. So any questions about these consonants we've learned today? All right.
Kayla has a question, Rabbi Sydney.
Yeah, great.
I'm not sure if it's a silly question, but it confuses me a little bit that some of the letters have the same sound.
Yeah, that is confusing. Absolutely. So that last slide again this was all the letter pairs that sound the same that we've learned. Or that was all the letter names that we learned today that sounded the same. And there's also from last week, there's vet and vav. So yes, I totally agree with you. That is very confusing. And when you are first reading, it might be confusing. When you're first reading, it might seem confusing, and you might ask, why in the world do we have so many letters that sound exactly the same? Because Like, why wouldn't you just use one letter for all of these? Couple reasons why we don't. So one is that I think I said this last week as well, that Hebrew words are made out of root letters. And so the way that we can tell the difference between two words is what letters that uses. So let me see if I can think of an example with any of these. I'm gonna think. You know, that's going to be my assignment for this next week, is to find examples of where the different letters change the meaning, the different letters that sound the same change the meaning.
So it's sort of like through and through in English.
Exactly, right. Well, not really though, because through and through mean the same thing.
As in past tense of I threw a bowl and
right.
go through.
Exactly. Right? Or to be or not to be, as opposed to a buzzing bee, right? So I'm going to find some examples of that next week. And also another part of it is that these letters probably used to sound different from one another. So even though they sound the same now, like an example is the ayin and the aleph that we said earlier, in some cultures, even today, like I think in Syrian Hebrew today, they'll pronounce the ayin more with a guttural sound like ayin, and then the aleph just silently. So so they probably used to be pronounced differently. If you have grandparents who spoke Hebrew back in the day, they probably would pronounce actually the taf and the tet differently from one another. So those are a couple of the reasons, but and then another reason too is that grammatically some of these are used differently. So for example, with vet and vav, vet is often used in as a root letter, whereas vav is sometimes becomes a vowel, sometimes just is at the beginning of the word to mean and so it's not all involved in the root in the same way that vet is. That's like Hebrew 3, so don't worry about it for now. But I agree with you. I sympathize with your pain, Kayla. The letters do sound a lot of the letters do sound the same. But I think that the good part about that is that at least in Hebrew, we always know what the letters sound like. They're always going to sound the same. Whereas in English, give me a C in the middle of a word, who knows, right? So, or an O, but we'll get to vowels later. All right. Other questions, comments, concerns? Did that address your concern at all, Kayla?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. And you're allowed to be frustrated about it. I am too. All right. So for next week, or not next week, I guess we're 2 weeks now, right? Let's see. Great. Our next meeting is August 3rd, 7 p.m. I think the only person here, actually, I think Dr. Aber and Kayla Sousa are not getting the emails, or at least didn't get the initial emails. So I will, I'm going to send, Dr. Aber, I have your email address, so I can send you the syllabus and the flashcard link. I don't have Kayla Sousa's email, so if either you or Curtis could send me that, I can send you the email link as well. All right. So I loved learning with all of you. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. If you have any questions before then, please let me know. I do apologize that for those who have tried to get in touch the past couple of weeks, or for those who I needed to check into it with and haven't. There's been a whole lot going on the last couple of weeks, but I'm back and I'm getting my to-do list things checked off. So thank you for your patience, and I will, if I owe you an email or 5, I'll get to them in the next couple of days. So have a wonderful